I'm Gab, he's Jules. Blue skies over West London because Chelsea have qualified for the Champions League
Well
in England.
done.
Big ups to all the people left it late. Chelsea, Juventus in Serie A.
Yeah.
Newcastle, despite losing at home.
Yeah.
Manchester City. But you know who hasn't? Aston Villa.
Yeah.
And
They're not happy.
we're going to start with that because Aston Villa are away at Old Trafford and Newcastle are home to Everton. We look at these two games together, and you figured Everton, nothing left to play for. Yeah. Carlos Alcaraz on the pitch. It's going to be an absolute dawdle. But no, Alcaraz scores. Newcastle lose. Villa play United at Old Trafford. And
just need a draw then.
All they need is a draw.
It is a draw.
And I'm going to go straight to the incident because Emi Martinez gets himself stupidly sent off at the end of the first half. And then there's an incident where Altay Bayindir, he doesn't gather the ball properly with both hands. I don't know what he's thinking. It's a brain fart. Morgan Rogers punches on him, kicks the button, kind of nips the ball away and scores, except he doesn't because the referee, a guy named Thomas Bremmel, blows the whistle before that. Now, Unai Emery absolutely loses it on the sideline. I mean, I like to make fun because I think he looks funny and talks funny and so on. I believe the guy's brilliant. I shouldn't be doing that. But he absolutely loses it. They've written a formal complaint to the Premier League about the fact that they're appointing somebody too inexperienced. He supposedly apologized after the game, saying he shouldn't have blown his whistle so soon. The fact that he blew the whistle meant VAR could not intervene, Jules.
Yeah.
Is this how they lost the Champions League?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bad mistake for sure from the referee, and they still would have had to play 20 minutes with 10 men against 11, and United might have scored one, maybe two, so we don't know. But that goal would have made a big difference for them, and this is costing them potentially the Champions League, £100 million, everything that comes with it. If they look back at the season, there are other key moments, of course, of the season where you didn't score, you conceded, of course, but this one would have been really painful, I think, because with 10 men as well, they didn't play well. Let's put it out. Let's start with that, because even at 11 against 11, they were terrible. Not what I expected from Aston Villa. They were so underwhelming against the United team that obviously 3 days before lost the Europa League in a very bad way. So you thought Villa would be on the front foot. They go there, they will win. They had won 89 in the league or something like that. They were in great form, and yet they, to start with, played so poorly, could not do three passes together. So it's also on them.
We can't emphasize how poorly they played. And I want to do two things. I mean, because sometimes more than one thing can be true. Yes, the guy got it badly wrong. Maybe, and what's infuriating is that it's not like he misjudged it. He made a technical error. He should have waited to whistle, right? That's fine. Equally, you know what the XG was at the time that Roger scored? It was 1.54 to 0.07.
Yeah, they had nothing.
They had absolutely nothing. And secondly, if you really want to go and talk about stupid mental errors out of nowhere, you need to have a talk with your goalkeeper, Emi Martinez.
Yeah, that was stupid, completely stupid. I mean, it's a bad pass from Cash, but then for him to come out like that, barge into Højlund, even try to argue that there was no red card. And the ball goes away from goal, but the way he bumps into him is ridiculous.
It's an obvious straight red. I mean, it looked like something from you might see in American
ice hockey.
football.
I think it was ice hockey. You
Yes,
know when they just go for it on purpose.
Straight from the NHL. We're going to get back to this and also talk about how United played well, and Ruben Amorim felt the need to apologize at the end. Flip it over to Newcastle and Everton. Did Newcastle take this a little bit lightly?
I don't know, or maybe they were a bit nervous because although it was in their own hands, they win, they're through, they're top five. They just looked so bad. Yeah. I just don't know what happened. The strongest team, pretty much. I don't like this back three. We've said it before, I think.
I think when Joe Linton's not there, he feels the need to do this.
Yeah, maybe of that. Also, there's no Trippier is not fit, so there's no fullbacks apart from Kraft. So you play Murphy as a kind of wing back and Livramento the other side, and that's it. I think that's more the reason why. But that, I don't think it's good for them, and they were terrible from start to finish.
Yeah, it's really weird. We've debated this so long. I mean, the rule of thumb is if you don't need the points and you don't have anything to play for, you tend to lose, or sometimes the opposite happens. You have no pressure whatsoever, and you turn in the kind of performance that Everton did. All right, Jules, let's stick to this game. But first, overall, the Newcastle season, because I don't always want to gloss over the fact they lost. Look, let's face it. We talk about, people are like, oh, you talk about the big six and Real Madrid and Barcelona. Yeah, because we're running a business here. This is what people want to hear about. But I think we also want to give credit. It's not like Newcastle are a small club, but certainly they do not have the budget. And they have, or they do have the money,
budget,
but they try to stay within financial parameters. I did not think going into this season, given the signings they made in the summer, I don't think anybody, I certainly didn't have them finishing top 4, top 5. Did you? And winning a trophy?
No. I mean, winning the trophy and top 5 finish is one of the greatest seasons in history, really, let's be honest here. Considering where they were last season, and they obviously had problems with suspensions and injuries and the Champions League, which took a lot of their energy and their focus and their priorities. So probably the truth was a bit in between the season they had before to qualify them for the Champions League. That was amazing. The one last season that was not so good. And they probably are also where they are because United and Spurs and teams like that didn't perform at the level that they should have performed, even Aston Villa to a certain extent. So, but credit to them, an incredible season.
I was thinking about them, and look, I tendentially would agree with you, right? That obviously Spurs and United screwed the pooch and Villa. But when I wonder, like I said, I am nothing against Eddie Howe as a person, as a manager. He never struck me as an elite manager. But when you do this 2 years out of 3 and you win a trophy along the way, and I look at these players and I think to myself, these guys are really, really good. Like those 3 teams that you mentioned, Villa, Spurs, and United, Bruno Guimaraes, I'm assuming, would walk into all of them, right? Isak obviously would walk into all of them. Tonali, with the season he's had,
I agree,
would walk into all of them.
Yeah.
A fit pre-injury Botman would probably walk into all of them.
Yeah, Gordon at his best.
Anthony Gordon is left. So in the end, even the goalkeeper situation. I mean, Augie, for example, is always talking about Newcastle need to replace Nick Pope. Okay, fine. But Pope versus Onana or Uncle Vic?
Yeah,
I don't
Martinez
know.
Even,
Well, I mean, Martinez.
Yeah, but what we saw.
But what we saw, So they actually are good players too. So I think there is a position where they have to be smart this summer, but I think they can build on it and be back in the Champions League again next year.
Yeah.
And if somebody falters or whatever, maybe even compete. It'll be really interesting how they play, how this summer plays out. Going back to Villa and United, we've seen this from Villa. We've seen situations where they look passive and then they suddenly turn it on. And I cannot wrap my head around, though, the psychology of this game. United are coming off the back of this huge disappointment, right? You can say, well, they're at home and they want to leave a good memory for the fans. I mean, nothing would leave a good memory for the fans after this United season, even at home. The fans went in expecting yet another home defeat.
Yeah.
This really was a case of Villa being really, really poor, continually giving the ball away.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Really, again, nerves maybe, because Villa had to win and hope that other results would go their way too. So it was not in their own hands. But I just don't know how they were so bad, really, because he was the strongest team too. It's not like if you say, okay, there was no Watkins and no Rodgers and no Camara,
no Rashford, and no that's only
but this is the strongest team that they have right now, really. And for them to be so bad, you mentioned the XG earlier, but even just not 3 passes together, just nothing, sloppy, bad passes, bad touches everywhere, just not up for it. But how can you not be up for it when Champions League is on the line? If you have nothing to play for and you're not up for it, you're already thinking about your holidays. Okay, no problem. But no, in this case, I was so disappointed.
I mean, this brings me to Emery, because I think we always praise him for, rightly so, for his tactical preparation, how, they very rarely get out. He very rarely gets out-tacticked in game, so to speak.
Yeah.
That's part of it. And part of it is getting your players ready. In this game, the bottom just fell out to a degree that I didn't. I don't think I've seen from. I mean, I'm sure it's happened before with Emery, but like I don't remember happening with Emery. They've had bad performances,
Yeah.
but not like this against a team in these conditions.
Yeah. 15th. Yeah. Definitely not.
Is there a broader issue here? Because I project forward, and you were in financial difficulty early in the season. You know that you've got issues with PSR and financial sustainability.
Yeah.
You took Asensio, you let Duran go, but that's not going to fix you in perpetuity, right? You were ready to let Watkins grow at a certain price, which Arsenal eventually didn't meet. You took Asensio and Rashford on loan, and Disasi, and presumably because you couldn't find or didn't want to find permanent signings for those roles.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're looking at a shortfall of 60, 70 million. Do you think this plays into Emery's head in his reaction?
Yeah, I think it's a massive blow for them not to have made it to the Champions League again. And the Champions League this season will bring them a lot of money because they went to the quarterfinals, they won games in the league phase. So this is maybe, I don't know how much they had budgeted for this Champions League campaign, but I would suspect it's more than what they've budgeted in the first place. So this is good for them, but what they're missing out on not qualifying for the Champions League next season, and by the way, they will play in the Europa League, which is nowhere near. It's not even if the Europa League was 50% of what you get in the Champions League, so you would be kind of okay-ish. It's nowhere near compared to what you would get in the Champions League. So the shortfall, as you said, Gabby, is massive.
It varies.
And then what do you do with your transfers then? Because you
Yeah.
wanted to keep Rashford and Asensio. Now there's no Champions League. Those guys play Champions League football every season, and probably same for the players that you would want to sign.
Yeah. So just to put this in context of the shortfall, if you have it, I mean, it varies on different things because obviously different clubs make different amounts of revenue from their home European dates and so on. But assuming they had budgeted to make the round of 16 of the Champions League, which is what you would normally budget for, versus making maybe the quarterfinals of the Europa League, the difference is going to be at least 60 to 70 million.
Yeah.
And that is a lot. That's like going to be 15% of your budget, right? Of your revenue for the season. That said, none of this would have happened if Newcastle had beaten Everton. So it's not as if they could have gone into the final day. I mean, like for the last month or so, they knew they were chasing. They knew it was going to take things to fall their way. So I generally don't know. I wonder if you look at it now, like, all right, do I sacrifice a big asset and try to rebuild that way? And by sacrificing a big asset, it could be Watkins, sure, but I don't know how much Watkins is going to bring, given that he's pushing 30 now. I'm a big Onana guy. You're a big Kamara guy.
Yeah.
But I feel with Onana, there's so much more upside. With Kamara, he's such an integral part of what they do.
Yeah.
People have talked about Emi maybe going.
Yeah, Martinez going. I think Kamara hasn't extended yet his contract. So they are, I think, ready to make him a massive offer to stay. But he's obviously attracted a lot of interest from other clubs because he's been so good since coming back from his injury. I just don't know how much this changes their plans and Emery's plans and Emery's people, because this is Emery's club now and he's got his people everywhere, pretty much in every floor of the building. I don't know, but where I agree with you as well, Gabby, is that this is on him a lot. And you look at it, if they'd finished top 5 plus FA Cup semi-final plus Champions League quarter-final, this is a very good season. Missing out on Champions League and also on an FA Cup final, like the way they did against Palace, because the Palace game is very similar to this United game for Villa. Another back five against you. You don't know what to do. You're terrible against back fives. You struggle. And then you lose both games, the Villa Crystal Palace at Wembley and the United Villa at Old Trafford on Sunday, the two biggest games of your season, because the Champions League quarterfinal against PSG is still a long shot. But those two games, Villa could have won against Palace at Wembley in the semi-final of the Cup and this one against United to qualify for Champions League next season. And they were just dominated completely from start to finish by those two teams that play with a back five, and Emery never found a way. So even for him, I think it's a big summer.
All right, we talk about, you might have, casual listeners might be aware, we talk about United all the freaking time. We don't need to spend too much time on them, but it is interesting. Ruben Amorim addressed the crowd after the game, and he apologized and said that better things were to come. Part of me wonders if this was kind of like a reaction to what he said last time around when he said, oh, well, if we don't improve, I'm going to leave and I won't want any compensation. As a journalist, as somebody who follows the media, I love the fact that he talks all the time. Some people might say, maybe you talk a little too much. Maybe it's time to park it for a while.
Let's put it that way, yeah.
And wait for the results to improve.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, all managers for the last home game of the season have a little word to the crowd on the mic.
You don't need to apologize.
Maybe you don't need to apologize. I thought, again, there was a lot of I and a lot of me, even in his apologies. He was like, you are disappointed in me. And then the players came after that, where he could easily have said, you disappointed in us as a whole, all of us here. And it's just, I don't know, it's a lot about him. He makes it a lot about him, a lot to him, a lot on him, and I, and me, and this. And I'm just not sure right now it was the right way. But hey, he apologized.
We're delving into media strategy here, to be honest, because the counter argument could be, like, if you were here, you would say, Jules, my friend, the reason I make it about me is so that people can criticize me because I am the face of the club. I am the reason we're playing the system. I don't want them to go and criticize Lenny or Amad Diallo or my players to get them down. I will protect my players, make it about me. I mean, Jose Mourinho, it's a Mourinho school.
But that was it was a different time. Mourinho school. It was a different time.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe you're a PR professional who could advise Amorim, and maybe we're wrong. Maybe you know what's best. Please reach out to us on social media. All right, enough Villa in our second segment. Let's talk about another key Champions League game. Nottingham Forest against Chelsea. Chelsea got it over the line. They win 1-0 with, I thought this first half, now neutral might not have enjoyed it. There were not many chances.
It was bad.
I thought it was two conservative teams being conservative, poking, prodding. I felt bad for Chris Wood personally when he missed a chance where he really should have done much, much better. And then again, this game decided on a defensive mistake. Nico Williams, weird header.
Yeah.
And then they recover the ball and it goes to early in the second half and it goes to Levi Colwill. Chelsea get it done. And Enzo Maresca coming out very feisty afterwards, saying that all these critics can F off, I think.
He said, that's exactly what he said, He said, like, for all the people who think they know better and they have all the truth and the knowledge and says we're young and inexperienced, well, that's one for you. He said that himself. It's not just us saying that you have a young team that lacks experience. He said himself when they were second at Christmas, he said, we can't win the title. We're too young. We lack too much experience. So you can't blame then us for saying that your team is too young. You are too young as a coach. Because you've said that yourself. But I understand that he felt...
He's telling you to F off.
Yeah, but it's fine. You can tell me to F off and you feel vindicated. But I repeated what you said, Enzo. So if you tell me to F off for what I said, it's the same for you because it's exactly the argument that you used to calm all the hopes down. But well done. You made it in the top 5. It was not pretty for the last few weeks and, to be fair, a couple of months. But you got there in the end. It was very important, as we said, for Chelsea as a club to qualify for the Champions League financially, especially. So well done. But you gave the stick to be beaten. We said that in French.
You made a rod for your own back.
Exactly. That's exactly what you said yourself. You were too young, and then you can't blame us for saying it too.
It's not like he said it because he tried to be clever. He said it because it's true.
Exactly.
Look, there's a performative quality to managers after games, right? It's like they're on stage. They're part of the showbiz. It is sports entertainment. And he goes and he says this. And he knows the reality. He knows that he was made to go into the season with one viable center forward, Nico Jackson. And he knows that when said viable center forward, Nico Jackson, by the way, I say viable. I don't think he's the second coming of Alan Shearer. When he gets injured, Chelsea start playing worse. And when his best player, Cole Palmer, has a dip, then they stop getting points and they start playing worse. Is it an achievement? to finish where they finished and then possibly win the Conference League? Sure, it is. It's absolutely an achievement. But all these other facts, having doubts about, not about Maresca, but about the way this team is constructed, the way it is going forward, I think they all remain.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know what? If I go through this team, right? Picture the future. Picture 3 years from now, Chelsea winning a Champions League or being in a Champions League final. And I go through what is supposed to be Chelsea's best 11 right now. Many of these guys are not going to be there. Because I guarantee you that Robert Sanchez, no. Reece James, only if he stays fit, and that's not something we've ever really seen. Fofana, Chalobah, I really don't think so. Colwill, maybe. Cuckoo, possibly. I was wrong about Cuckoo. I'll hold my hands up. Caicedo, definitely. Enzo, I think is still very, very touch and go with that one. Cole Palmer, yes. Yeah, are you a big Madueke Neto fan? Mudryk? None of these people, right?
Yeah.
And Nico, let's see what happens when he comes back. This is the reality, right? So
Yeah.
you can go and boast about bringing all the young players and whatever and the long-term plan. But, 3 years from now is going to be 5 years from when the plan started. And how many of these players look like they're on that trajectory? And you can say Romeo Lavia, maybe Andre Santos comes, maybe Kendry Páez. Yeah, maybe. We thought Mikhailo Mudryk was going to be really good too. So I think it's still very much on a nice knife edge, but big achievement for him. Big achievement for Forest too and Mr. Marinakis.
Yeah, although they were disappointed, and you can understand. I mean, it didn't look like they had qualified for Europe at the end of that Chelsea game because they wanted Champions League. They didn't get it. I was disappointed. I won't lie by the performance. I thought they'd be on the front foot. They had to go for it. It was the final. And for me, they just didn't perform well enough.
Still, I think a tremendous season, which left you wanting a little more. All right, enough Chelsea. How about some quick hits instead?
Let's go, guys.
Real Madrid finished the campaign with a 2-0 win over Real Sociedad as Kylian Mbappe backs 2 goals to win the European Golden Boot. But Jules, this was all about the farewells to Luka Modric and Carlo Ancelotti.
Yeah, it was. I mean, let's not forget Lucas Vazquez was also leaving, but you're right. The two main ones were them, Carlo Ancelotti and Luka Modric. A lot of emotions all around, a lot of tears too. I think everybody within that stadium or within that fan base or the club would acknowledge and recognize how important those two guys have been in the last 12 years for Luka Modric and Carlo in and out really, but since 2012 or 13. So very, very important part of the greatest club in the world.
Anniversary of Ancelotti winning La Decima for Real Madrid, the exact same day. And Modric wheeled out one of quote we all know. It's a very sweet quote. Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened. Although I went deep down a rabbit hole. He attributed it to Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
Yes.
Not him, apparently. A lot of people attribute it to Dr. Seuss.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
also not him. There's quote investigators on the internet. I found it. Apparently it's some German poet I'd never heard of in the 1890s.
Okay. A late Manuel Locatelli penalty. Who saw that one coming? Gives Juventus a 3-2 win away. Stop it. At Venezia to seal their place in the Champions League for next season. But this was a struggle.
It was a struggle like Juve's all season. They go a goal down straight away. Then they're 2-1 up. And then for some reason they keep attacking. And then they concede and it's 2-2. And then Di Gregorio has to make this tremendous save. And then the Locatelli penalty, like I know what you're doing there. It's
I'm just saying, it's a penalty, but
the guy who fouls him is Nicolosi Caviglia, who was part of Juve's next gen team a few years. Is that what you're saying?
I'm just saying that there was
All right, for shame. Tudor says, some people think he might stay. Tudor says, whoever the next coach of Juve is, if it's me or somebody else, should be in place for the Club World Cup, which some people take to mean that either he's sticking around or he's definitely gone. And there isn't much time before the Club World Cup.
Yeah, that's true.
Manchester City are also nailed down their Champions League place with a 2-0 win over Fulham. Jules, that Ilkay Gundogan is rather sprightly for a man his age.
Well, yeah, it's a good goal. This is the only thing he could do anyway. The kind of a hover
It's hard to do.
Well, the Raul Jimenez one that goes just over the bar in the second half is much harder to do than the Gundogan one, obviously.
I just thought the way he doesn't have any
Just
kind
the ball
of
loops
run-up.
over him, so then he turns around and then do it like you do on the beach on your own. You throw the ball in the air and then you do the overhead kick. That's what it is. It's not like a cross coming like the Jimenez one.
Yeah,
but he's still a good goal.
Well, Jimenez is athletic.
Yeah,
Gundogan,
true. That's very true. For me, this was all about KDB being left on the bench by Pep Guardiola until the 85th minute. I know he got his farewell at home at the Etihad in midweek last week, but I just didn't understand that call. I thought it was very disrespectful from Guardiola to leave KDB on the bench for his last ever game for this club, maybe the greatest player they've ever had in Manchester City history, or certainly in the top 5. You leave him on the bench to put a Nico Gonzalez there, to put a Gundogan there who will be there next season. It was not for me.
Franny Lee sends his regards, by the way.
It's a top 5, so you can have Franny Lee if you want.
And you know why, KDB? Because he'd been partying too much, celebrating Napoli Scudetto, his future team.
Yeah, probably. Ryan Gravenberch is sent off as Liverpool draw 1-1 at Anfield against Crystal Palace with Jurgen Klopp in attendance. But Gab, this was all about the trophy lift and the party.
That's right. Look, I mean, I was so excited. The Community Shield is my absolute favorite football match every year. And this is a preview of the Community Shield. What could be better? No, look, I mean, both teams on the pitch. It was all about what happened afterwards. I don't know why Gravenberch felt the need to get himself sent off. Maybe he wants a little holiday at the start of next season. I don't know. But not much to say here. Nice that I thought Trent, after being booed by a portion of people, and they have every right to boo, also realized that a lot of people really, really love him. Paris Saint-Germain destroy Reims by halftime to win the French Cup. Jules, the quadruple is on.
Yeah,
even without Kvara.
I'll take a treble, to be fair. Kvara with a bad headache, so he went home, and Doué started instead of him. And Barcola and Doué just destroyed Reims pretty much on their own.
Double B and double D.
Absolutely. They could have scored 6, 7, 8 goals, to be fair. They was that good. But obviously, all the priority, all the focus now is on Saturday and Inter Milan.
And also, Rams were much more focused on staying up.
Yeah.
That's why. That's why they chose to be 3-0 down at halftime.
Let's rewind to Friday night, Gab, as well. Napoli beat Cagliari 2-0 to win their second Scudetto in 3 years. And Scott McTominay is the MVP. But could Antonio Conte really believing?
Let me deal with McTominay first.
Incredible.
I was wrong. Many of us were wrong. I didn't think he could be this good straight away. I thought he could have an impact. He's a big body in the middle of the pitch. He'll break up play. No. He turns into a devastating second striker type. Really embraces the city. The city embraces him. 12 goals this season. Now, is it all down to Serie A being rubbish and the Premier League being so good? Or is it down to a bunch of coaches he had at Manchester United failing to see what he could bring? And even Steve Clark with Scotland seeing what he could bring further up the pitch. I'll leave the debate out there. Conte, De Laurentiis coming out. He says if you're not happy here, you probably should move on. He came out and he said this. And the backstory about Conte is obviously first season. He did it kind of on a shoestring, and it's tremendous credit to him. But he says, hey, if I want to go on, I want assurances. I want I want investment so we can compete for the Champions League, defend our Serie A title. It is kind of weird. Napoli win 2 historic titles twice in 3 years, and both times their title-winning managers leave.
Yeah.
Sina Blackstenius comes off the bench to score the only goal as Arsenal upset Barcelona to win the Women's Champions League, Jules.
Yeah, incredible achievement 18 years on after their first time winning it in 2007, the only club in English women's football to have ever won it. And against all odds, because Barca were heavily favourite, and rightly so. They've won the last 2. But Arsenal played almost the perfect game, defended really well, quite deep, but defended really well. And then scored with a really good goal. Beth Mead with the assist, great assist, like really Bon Mati kind of assist. And then lovely finish by Blackstenius. Both of them coming off the bench, as you said. So René Slegers, who took over the job as a manager in November, from Jonas Eidevald, then working a magic all through the season, especially in that final.
And let's not forget here, Arsenal started the season really, really badly.
Yeah.
They didn't finish the season much better. I mean, in the end, they were third at the end of the season, right? So
second in the.
But they were third for much of the season. Were they second?
Yeah, I mean they were fighting for
But he inherited that bad start, right?
Renee
Slegers. Sorry, we often talk about men, so I not to say he, but obviously she. Whereas Jonas Eidevall is a man, so I can say he for him. Let's just get rid of these genders, man. I'll just say the coach. But it was tremendous. And if you look at it, Barcelona, the bulk of the possession, they took 1 billion shots. But you look at the XG, you look at the quality of the Barcelona chances. It was a lot of hit and hope. It was a lot of Claudia Pino from shooting from 40 yards out. It was a lot of that.
Barcelona end their season with a 3-0 away win against Athletic Club de Bilbao as Robert Lewandowski scores twice to take his total to 42 for this season. Gab, some people said signing him back in 2022 was a mistake.
Yes, look, it's contrition day. What can I say here? Look, I think from a financial perspective,
it's costing them a lot of money.
It's cost you a lot of money, but in the end, he's getting you a lot of goals. He's up to 101 goals for Barcelona in 3 seasons. In those 3 seasons, they won 2 league titles.
Yeah.
They've injected a ton of enthusiasm into the club, into the fan base. Now, it's not all because of him. They came very, very close to getting to the Champions League final. Yeah, they're going to have to replace him, obviously, maybe either this summer, if not this summer, next summer, definitely. But I don't think you can say that it hasn't worked out. So credit to him and credit to Barca. Arsenal finished with a 2-1 win at Southampton. Jules, obviously, all season long, we've been talking about the need for center forward.
Yeah.
And how some of us suggest that maybe if they'd acted in January, then maybe they'd be Champions League winners, maybe even title winners. Maybe. Anyway, Arteta says, we're on it.
Yes.
All right, Mikel. And according to media reports, I saw this in the Times. I think everybody has the same thing, which suggests that maybe somebody was briefed. Isak is too expensive.
Which was expected.
And they're looking for Gyökeres or Sesko, both of whom have pros and cons.
Yeah.
I have my view, but who do you like out of those two?
I like them both, to be fair. You're right. They have pros and cons. One is younger, Sesko. The other one has scored many more goals in his career, but in a lesser league than the Bundesliga in Portugal. I think Sesko is probably all around better. And I think probably better technically.
Bigger upside.
Technically as well, with more room for improvement. But do you want somebody with room for improvement, or do you want somebody who could be ready, who's hungry and going straight in and hit the ground running straight away? I don't know. I feel sometimes watching Sesko, I find him a bit nonchalant in his attitude and his body language, which I don't find with Gyökeres. So I don't know. I think both would be great. One of them would be great. As in, one of them would be great. Not both. Not sign them both, but one of them. I'm just not sure then on what really would be the key here to decide him or him.
For me, it's very simple. As you know, I don't think they need to sign an absolute A-lister to replace Kai Havertz at center forward, because I'm a Kai Havertz fan. And if you bring somebody in, it's really difficult to fit Kai Havertz into the lineup. Yes, he can play midfield, but hey, look, that's a Declan Rice position. Oh, but then move Declan Rice in front of the back 4. Oh, but Zubimendi's coming to play there. Not to mention when you get into a world of Marinos and Waneris. So I want Kai Havertz to be my center forward next season. And because I want Kai Havertz to be my center forward next season, I want a guy who can take minutes off him, who in some situations can play with him, who can bring something different to the table. And for that reason, I'm much more Sesko-oriented. Sesko's still very young. You can come and you say, hey, Benjamin, hang out here for a year. You're going to play a ton. We're going to do different things with you. Havertz can also play wide. He's done it before. Let's not forget, right? It's not like, oh, look, Martinelli, upgrade Martinelli. Yeah, leave Martinelli where he is.
I think they might sign a left winger anyway.
So they say. I mean, it depends where you decide to put your resources. I would focus on extending Saliba. That would be my very first priority, if you can.
Trying to do that too.
But yeah, I would definitely go for Sesko. Gyökeres comes mid-career, high service, and then you kind of have to play around Gyökeres a lot. Great player, but for me, it's a no-brainer.
Also, back on Friday, Inter beat Como 2-0 as Simone Inzaghi rest a bunch of starters. Gab, the title was out their hands anyway.
It was, and, they put out a team to beat Como, and they did. I mean, they still had some starters out there. They had Çalhanoğlu out there. They had Federico Di Marco out there. They had Jan Sommer out there. They had good guys out there. Bisek. Things got a whole heck of a lot easier when Pepe Reina got sent off
on his last ever game.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm all for applying the rules, but was that really necessary? I don't know. But the important thing is people got to run out. Nobody got hurt. They had all the guys on the bench just in case. Lautaro, Thuram. Yeah. I'm good with it. I think they'll be prepared when it comes to facing Paris Saint-Germain. Ooh, Bayer Leverkusen have a new manager.
Ooh,
it's another Dutch bald man.
Yeah, Erik ten Hag was announced today and officially, although we've known for a few days now. They picked him to replace Xabi Alonso with his good squad, talented squad. We will lose some players, of course, in the summer, like Jonathan Tah and Florian Wirtz, but still a good squad. So it'll be very interesting to see what Ten Hag can do in this league.
Can I say? It's not going to be interesting. It's going to be bad. It's going to be bad. He's losing Frimpong too.
Yeah, Frimpong as well, yeah, of course.
I'm not sure Schick's going to stick around. He could lose Boniface as well. And then it becomes a question of, oh, look, let's turn to the recruitment specialist who is his son.
Yeah,
I mean,
Nigel.
Maybe not.
Well.
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Maybe the Leverkusen, but I think it's going to be very difficult for Leverkusen to replicate what they had before, even though they will get a lot of money in if Wirtz goes, obviously.
Of course. Because that's the thing. Ten Hag is not going to work with Florian Wirtz at Bayer Leverkusen. He seems on his way to Liverpool, Gab.
Fabrizio Romano coming out very strongly on this one. He says Liverpool have put together an initial package of worth 100 million, which package worth 100 million could mean anything, but it probably involves bonuses and add-ons, probably a base fee. I think Leverkusen are going to turn that down because they're going to want more.
That's just the first offer.
That's an initial offer. What is interesting that he reported is that Wirtz has apparently told his people, according to Fabrizio, that he only wants Liverpool.
Yeah.
Which, if you're Bayern, that's not what you want to hear. It also kind of, the whole Manchester City have pulled out, have decided not to pursue. Yeah, okay. Puts that in context. Hey, Jules, I know we're going to talk about this endlessly when he comes in, but your initial reaction, obviously you can never have too many good players, but this means, I would guess, that it's not just Darwin who could be on his way, but Luis Diaz has been linked with a move as well. It means a lot of wheeling and dealing.
Because it's more for Szoboszlai, really. He's replacing Szoboszlai in that.
You really think it's that?
Yeah, well, yeah. That's where he's going to play. He's going to play in front of Gravenberch.
So. I don't.
What do you think he's going to play?
I don't know, but this has been one of the facts. I was talking to somebody who knows Slot well about, and it's not like he said, oh yeah, Slot said he wants to do this, but he was talking about it within the context of the Frimpong signing as well, about how Slot might be looking for a back three going forward, or a de facto back three, and it could be Gravenberch dropping in or whatever. But the idea is to really exploit Frimpong and potentially Kirkes if it comes to in the wing back role, and that would mean maybe more of a Christmas tree, maybe pushing Salah inside, and then maybe Wirtz with him or Gakpo with him. There's a lot of things you can do.
Yeah, I was told he would play as a number 10 behind the striker, whoever that striker is. And I think that's Szoboszlai that makes way, and Wirtz is better than Szoboszlai. It's just the money side, because Bayer Leverkusen won 150 million. Liverpool are not going to pay that. I think Leverkusen know that too. So where do you meet in between? Is it 100 million plus, let's say, 13 bonuses? But it's certain that Wirtz has agreed personal terms with Liverpool, so that is on his way. I would not believe, although the ball is very much in Simon Rolfes and Leverkusen's camp, in the sense that if they don't want to let him go, they don't let him go. He's got no choice but to stay. I still think that he wants to go. They will find an agreement somewhere between 100 and 150 million.
You don't think that now that he knows that Erik ten Hag is going to be the manager, he might be like, wait a minute, I want to play for the bald Dutch manager, for this bald Dutch manager, not that bald Dutch manager.
It's true, maybe. You never know.
Then he gets a message from Peter Bosch and says, hey, what about me? I'm Dutch and bald too.
The guy from Go Ahead Eagles is also bad. Won the cup, he's bald as well.
As is Yip Yap Stam, the large Dutch man.
Yeah. And Pep. Oh, no, he said no to Pep already.
And also Pep's not Dutch.
True, but he's still bald.
He's Dutch adjacent, though, because he's very Cruyff influenced. All right, let's leave that rabbit hole. Oh, one quick thing. Here's the question. Do you think it's going to break the Premier League transfer record when Wirtz signs?
Yeah.
Which I believe is 106 sterling, which is about 120. No, the reason I asked
you're right.
It's about 120 euros, right?
Yeah, maybe not. Because of the bonuses, I think the way the deal is going to be structured, we'll have a lot of bonuses in it. Some easily reachable, some other more difficult, like for Wirtz to win the Ballon d'Or in the next 3 seasons. So you get an extra 10 million. So you're right. No, I would say no.
And this is just an excuse to bring up Jack Grealish, since we didn't mention him before.
Yeah, on his way out. Since I saw him on the train, since we do the train together, he hasn't been the same.
Things have gone downhill.
Yeah, exactly.
One last thing on the bonuses, fun fact. So when you look back, obviously Pedri joined Barcelona from Tenerife, I think, when he was very, very young, right? And you look at the base transfer fee that they
Las
paid.
Palmas, yeah.
Las Palmas, right, in the Canary Islands. It was very low. That deal had a ton of add-ons in there that if you add them all up, he's actually turned out to be really expensive.
Yeah.
Worth every penny.
Absolutely.
But it's kind of funny the way...
bonuses are good, yeah.
Bonuses, like we need to go back to them and check them who's earned them out and who hasn't.
Yeah.
Stuttgart beat Arminia Bielefeld 4-2 in the DFB Pokal final to win their first trophy in 28 years. Not bad for a team that lost so much talent in the summer.
Not bad at all. Well done to Sebastian Hoeneß and this team that also was in the Champions League this season, that did well in the Bundesliga. Maybe not as high as they wanted for the finish, but have been a lot of fun to watch. You could expect them to lose more talent, unfortunately, in the summer, because I think Stiller is going to go. I think Millau is going to go.
But it's okay, because do you see Nick Woltemade, a.k.a.
we
Voldemort,
saw him
staying?
again, yeah.
He's going to stay, right?
up. Yeah, he's going to stay. Been called up by Germany again. I felt a little bit for Arminia Bielefeld and my friend Maël Corbos, their captain, who is half French, half American, who was a wonderful story. If you can look it up and look into it, because it's a wonderful story. They'd beaten 4 Bundesliga sides already on their way to the final. I think this one the step was just a little too high for them, but they went up to Bundesliga 5.
Yep.
So I hope they can keep improving like they did, but this was a little bit too high.
They became the first third-tier team to ever score a goal in the DFB Pokal final.
Yeah, as well. Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, I mean, Stuttgart peppered them. I think they were 3-0 up at halftime, went 4-0 up.
Yeah, they were.
However, the first big chance of the game fell to Bielefeld, some guy I'd never heard of, with a guy who was like a double-barreled first name and a double-barreled last name. That should not be allowed unless you're Andre Frank Zambonguisa. He gets to do it because I like him. I don't like you, guy who missed a chance. But that could have taken a different turn there.
Yeah. And that's what they used to do before, be so efficient, but maybe not this time. And Gab, until that late Juventus penalty that we mentioned earlier, Roma were heading into the Champions League. What a way for the miracle man, Claudio Ranieri, to go out.
Yeah, pretty remarkable. They were out there hammering Torino, and they were a goal behind. It's a classic situation where, they needed to better Juve's result. It didn't happen. But let's not forget, this is a guy who took over Roma when they were on the edge of the relegation zone.
Yeah.
And he lost his first 2 games. And he had all these players who people said, like Celik and Hummels and Matthias Süle, who were all wrong and weren't going to fit. And he motivated everybody. And it's incredible that he came so close. And it was funny because they asked him about who the next Roma manager was going to be. Jurgen Klopp coming out and saying, no, it's not me. It's not me. Also, Klopp's so sweet when he talks. He doesn't just say Roma, but because he's German, he say, oh no, I won't be the new coach of AS Roma. Like, just call it Roma, dude. But whatever, you're Klopp, you get to do what you want. But very, very cool. He said he may stay on as a consultant or whatever. I don't know. I have a feeling we might see him coach again. I think it's going to be too hard for him to stay away.
I hope so.
The only living Sorloth in captivity scores a hat-trick as Atletico Madrid win 4-0 away to Girona. 20 goals in 15 starts, plus another 20 appearances off the bench. Let's put some respect on his name, Jules.
Yeah, and he was on the bench again for that game, replacing Antoine Griezmann after an hour and then scoring those the hat-trick. I mean, he's
garbage
so good.
time hat-trick.
Yeah, garbage time, but still, as you said, Gabby, they all count. But he's just so good at scoring like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just amazing. What striker? He still misses big chances regularly through the whole season. So I think it could be even better than this, really. But it has to be a starter next season. I think whether Julian Alvarez stays or not, that's another matter. But surely the Alvarez-Sorloth or somebody Sorloth partnership up front has to be there next season.
I think it's going to be a 3-man rotation rather than a 4-man rotation, obviously with Correa going. But I think Griezmann's minutes have to go down, or he plays attacking midfield.
Yeah, exactly. Milan end their campaign with a 2-0 win over Monza. Joao Felix scores a gorgeous free kick, and the Ultras are not happy. Gab, the winds of change are coming.
Yeah, this is the game that nobody wanted to play. I think everybody in Milan land wanted the season to be over, and Monza already relegated, nothing to do. So what happens in these situations? Wow, Joao Felix hits over and says, yeah, look at me, hits the crossbar. Great freak. I don't want to be mean to him, but no, I kind of do. Remember, we had a quick hit once when Chelsea, when he was still at Chelsea played like a bunch of Muppets in the FA Cup or the League Cup or some other nonsense like that. And he scored 2 goals.
It
and
looked
it was
amazing, yeah.
tremendous skill. And you reminded me, yes, but who's he doing it again? What's the context? And you were right, Jules, because
he teases you and then disappears for 5 games and then comes back, do a nutmeg. And then...
So, Sergio Conceição, not there because he's suspended, won't be back. João Felix, I don't think they're going to put him in a little box and send him back to Chelsea for Enzo Maresca to deal with.
This is their problem.
What I liked about this game, I'm not kidding, Pulisic and Tijani Reinders, I'm not saying they're the only two and you're watching on television, but they still mattered. They still cared.
Yeah.
Milan have such a good core of players. There's some big blackout zones in that team. But I'm sorry, I expect them to come straight back because when you have that, Magic Mike, Reinders, Pulisic, even you'll get something from Leao.
Yeah, of course,
you've got talent in this team.
Yeah.
So Iglitare should be official as director of football next week. Still not official.
Finally.
And then they'll get to work on the new coach. And obviously, inevitably, given the situation, we mentioned Antonio Conte before.
Yeah.
Conte's been linked to the Juve job. He's been linked to the Milan job. I think
Max Allegri as well. I think been linked to a lot of clubs.
Oh, yeah. Another guy's been unemployed for 3 years. Okay. Tottenham Hotspur get hammered at home by Brighton 4-1. Jules. And Postecoglou says, part of him is thinking, why am I even being asked about my future? We just won the Europa League. Club chairman Daniel Levy writes in his program notes, I thought this was pointed.
Yeah.
It's one trophy. Our clear ambition as a club has always been long-term, sustained success.
And that's the heart of it. Gabby, can you achieve that with Ange Postecoglou or not? I think this season has showed that for me, he's not that kind of manager. I've said it before. I'm happy to say again, well done for winning the Europa League. But like Daniel Levy says, this is one trophy. And if Ange doesn't understand why his future is uncertain, despite winning the Europa League, he's missing the point. I think he's saying it on purpose. He completely understands. Yeah, he knows.
He's too smart.
He's too smart for that. And Ange, who hasn't been told anything about preseason or what's going to happen next, surely that doesn't bode well. They might keep him and he might do a wonderful job. We like Ange as a man. We've said that a long time before. But 22 defeats this season in the league, which is the most ever in English football history for a team not being relegated from the top flight, whether it was the Premier League, the old first division, call it whatever you want. 38 points in 38 games is unacceptable. Whether you won the Europa League or not, it doesn't matter. It's not good enough.
And I think if you use the other metric about which players have gotten better in the past year, I mean, you could make a point about Udogie, maybe. Although, I mean, he wasn't bad when he came. You can certainly make a point about Bergvall. I don't know if he got better if we just saw more of him.
Yeah, that's true.
Brennan Johnson.
Maybe,
Solanke.
I'm not sure he's better than he was last season at Bournemouth this season. Definitely not. So, yeah. And you called it, Gabby, Sami Achoud is the new president of the Brazilian FA. And Carlo Ancelotti is the new boss and arrived in the night in the UK in Brazil.
Yeah, well, wearing
his cap,
big orange cap. I thought that was pretty
cool.
Yellow. Was it?
It was yellow for is the one that they wear, with the
they gave it to. I didn't know it was a Brazil hat. No. So yeah, this is pretty straightforward. First of all, I don't know this guy Samir Shad from Adam, but what we do know is he's from one of the smallest federations in Brazil.
Yeah.
We also know that the Brazilian professional clubs, most of them opposed his appointment. And we know that his predecessor, Edinaldo Rodrigues, wasn't running again or vacated the position because, and I'm going to choose my words carefully here. He was accused of falsifying a signature.
Yeah.
And then chose not to appeal the accusation. Is that fair enough? Lawyers happy? Yeah. This is what he's walking into. There's so much potential in Brazil, but a lot of senior players, a lot of legendary Brazilian players have said, listen, we can't have this federation running one way in the clubs. If we want our clubs to be professional and so on, there's a lot to sort out.
Yeah.
I just hope it doesn't affect Carlo Ancelotti's job. And I hope that if Brazil are successful, we don't have all these people jumping on the bandwagon. Because if Brazil succeeds in football, right now, the way the setup is It's not. It's because you have tremendous players and maybe a good coach who gets them over the line, like Chichi was back in the day. It's not because your organization or your system is any good, because it's clearly not, because you've got people fighting all the time. Sporting may have lost Ruben Amorim in mid-season, but they still win the domestic double. What a comeback in the cup final against Benfica, Jules. And is Renato Sanchez the biggest bonehead in history?
I don't know, but this loan deal from PSG to Benfica for Renato Sanchez. Remember how good he used to be?
No.
But when he was young, he was very good.
No, I was 5 years old when he was young.
But incredible. Yeah, I know. And a game where you thought Benfica had under control, took the lead. They obviously faced each other in this kind of league final. Remember, 2 games before the end of the season, where this time Sporting took the lead early and then Benfica came back, but it was not enough. They had to win. They didn't win. In this case, it was late for Sporting to win that double and go back-to-back league title. We said that before, but now to cap it off with a double, it's a pretty special season, considering you lost your manager halfway through the season back in November, even before the halfway mark.
Benfica had so many chances to win, to add to their lead. They scored early in the second half, but they could have been a couple goals up at halftime, from what I could tell from the highlights I saw. Sporting did very, very little. Renato Sanchez, there's no reason for you to give away that penalty. There's none whatsoever. It's on you.
Atalanta finished the season with a defeat to Parma 3-2, but Gab, let's celebrate their third place finish. It's easy to forget what an achievement this is.
Yeah, it's tremendous, and we get bored talking about it. Resources, people being born on third place and thinking they hit a triple. Like, it's not impressive when Real Madrid or Barcelona or Manchester City or Juventus or Inter win, because you have massive budgets. You didn't even mention Paris Saint-Germain.
No, thank you.
It is impressive when Atalanta do, because this is a club it's a provincial club. Yes, they are from a wealthy city, but they're a club that historically have been mid to bottom of the table, and they have this tremendous leadership it's a wonderful combination of a local family, which the Percassi family, which have been there for a long time, together with U.S. private equity minds. Yeah. Together with they've had scouts and different directors of football from around Europe. They have the best academy in Serie A. Their signings, they don't always get them right, but many of them they do get right. They sell very well. Yeah. Hey, hello, Rasmus Højlund. And this is the upside. They are one of the gold standards clubs in how you should run. And for me, them finishing third, them winning we talked about last year when they won the Europa League, whatever else, Gasperini, chuck it all in there. That to me is as impressive as winning a title. And one of these years they may yet win a title. Union Saint-Gilloise are Belgian champions, Jules. Now, Belgium, as you know, have a different system. They have a playoff system.
They have, indeed.
At the end of the regular season, at the end of 30 games, everybody played everybody else for home and away. They were third. They were 13 points behind. And then when they go in the playoffs, where the top 6 all play each other twice, right?
That's it, yeah.
They destroyed everybody. 9 wins and 1
They were outstanding. Their first title in 91 years, 9-1. Incredible. They used to be big, massive club at the start of the 20th century. Then not so big at all, really not good. And then the last few years, they've been great. They do a lot of really good things with their scouting, their recruitment. They keep losing their best players season after season, and they kept rebuilding and still having success. And they finish, as you said, Gabi, in the playoff with 9 wins, 1 draw. This is the last year of the playoffs too. So from next season onwards in Belgium, there's no more playoffs. So it's just the league title at the end that decide the champions. So they would not have been champions. Club Brugge were probably the best team and the most consistent team until the playoffs. And in the playoffs, it was all about Union Saint-Gilloise. If you don't know where Union Saint-Gilloise is, it's just in the suburbs of Brussels, so in the banlieue of Brussels. But they've been a wonderful club, and they've had great fans too. So I'm really happy.
It's not even suburbs. It's more almost like a posh neighborhood kind
of. To
the south of the center. Shout out to Alex Musio, my boy, who runs the club.
Yeah.
I was thinking about these playoffs, right? I thought how do we feel about it? I know they're abandoning them.
Like Scotland have them. There's a few other leagues that have them. Switzerland have them too.
Would you have liked to see this in the Premier League, say?
Yeah, I think it's quite cool.
Top 6 again.
Yeah,
home and
I think
away.
there's something cool about it. I understand the fairness, or not fairness, but should you be the champions if after 40 games or 38 or
Genk
34,
may not have liked this.
Yeah, you should have been the title, maybe. But yeah, I think there's something about it. I like it. Mohamed Salah says there were serious negotiations to join the Saudi Pro League before he extended his contract with Liverpool, Gab.
Yeah, I think he was on some Saudi TV show when he said this. How serious were they? Because he also says the same thing. He always wanted to stay.
Yeah.
So in the end, it was going to be. I kind of feel like, all right. So what is it about money? So like the only scenario, if you always want to stay, the only scenario where you don't stay is if Liverpool say, "Hey, Mo, come back and play for minimum wage because you love the club so much," right? I do think it's a bit different for Salah going to Saudi because I think there is. I think there's a religious and a cultural component. He's a religious guy.
Yeah.
So I think it's different from him than some other than Milinkovic, Savic, or somebody going to Saudi. So I don't think it would have been just a money move, although obviously, rightly, had he gone there, he would have been paid. But I don't mind that he was open about it. But I think it was always going to be, to me, if we didn't get greedy, he was always going to stay, and he didn't get greedy.
And they will be there in 2 years' time when his contract with Liverpool finishes, and this time probably won't have an extension. So
well,
he can
funny,
still go
be there. I'm not 100% certain the Saudi money will be there. Maybe it will.
Yeah.
But I could still see him going there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I could still see him at the end of his career. Actually, I don't know, because I know he played, when he was in Egypt, he played for something called Arab Contractors. I don't know if he's a Zamalek or an Al Ahly fan, or if he has any connection to either club. I should know. I'm sorry. But we'd be pretty cool if at the very end of his career he went back there.
Right, definitely.
Jules, Sunderland have won the championship playoffs and will be joining the Premier League.
Yes.
As you know, I do not follow the championship.
Yeah.
I do know a little more about Sunderland because I did watch that wonderful Sunderland Till I Die documentary.
It was a long time ago, though.
Yeah, I know, but I think that was the last time it was just after they went down and they had the weird posh guy in the second season. So please educate me, because I believe they have a French manager and a Roma reject whose dad was in prison.
Yeah. Also French, and a French owner. One of the youngest, by the way. He will be the youngest by far.
But not with the French name.
Well, Louis Dreyfus, that's pretty French.
What is it?
Louis Dreyfus. His surname, that's pretty French.
Oh, as in the affair, Dreyfus affair.
Yeah, Dreyfus, yeah.
I was getting him.
Yeah, his father was the Marseille owner, Robert, back in the days.
I got him confused. Wasn't there some other French-Russian dodgepot that tried to buy the club at some point?
I don't know. But so very French vibes in Sunderland with Régis Lebris, the manager, Enzo Lefebvre, the playmaker that you mentioned, who came on loan from Roma, and now I think will stick around and has been very good, was too good for the championship. But third against fourth in this playoff final, Sheffield United, who finished third, 14 points ahead of Sunderland in the championship, long championship season. Sunderland were fourth.
Which is really 16 points if you take away the points penalty.
Yeah, I mean, but like 14 in the table, 7 more wins for Sheffield United than Sunderland. And in the end, it's Sunderland who go up in the 95th minute at the end of the suspense in the game. To be fair, with Sheffield United controlled for most of it. But credit to Lebris, he's a great coach. I think showed a lot of resilience at Sunderland, less dogmatic than when he was in France, where he was one of the game's philosophers and having that kind of like personality. And he made this young team very resilient, very good, fighting for everything, and with a lot of verticality and really interesting players like Isidore, like Lefebvre, of course, like Bellingham, the brother, like Rig, like Watson, who scored the goal, who's going to Brighton. I don't know, they will need a lot more to stay up next season in the Premier League because they're not ready just now, but it's an amazing achievement for them. 2
fun facts. One, Bellingham goes by Job on his back, presumably because there's another guy with the same last name and the same first initial as well, who's more famous and better than he is, his older brother.
Yeah.
And I think it's nice to see a club go up, or it makes it more of a feat to have a club go up without, it's a non-parachute payment club. I mean, obviously, historically Sunderland Premier League club, but they don't have parachute payments anymore. They've been down a long time.
Yeah. Gab, I know you're a big fan of iShow Speed, so you must have been watching when that bald man interrupted his live stream.
That's right. It wasn't orchestrated at all. It's like, what? Gianni Infantino?
He's here. How did you get in? Did you have a pass?
He wanders in holding a ball. He says, this is the ball that's going to be used in the inaugural Club World Cup game. And,
Wow.
And, Speed's all like, whoa, man. Like, he's like, but I need the ball back by June 14th. Otherwise we can't play. Yuck, yuck, yuck. He also brought up, obviously, Speed's favorite player is Cristiano Ronaldo. So he brought up the possibility of Cristiano Ronaldo going on loan and maybe playing in the Club World Cup. Like, Infantino's getting killed for this, right?
Yeah.
Because he doesn't do press conferences, he doesn't face the media. He's messing around a lot with influencers. At least he's not on Newsret, Salt Bay's Instagram anymore. He's speaking to what he thinks is the best way to grow his audience. I'm not 100% convinced it's true. I think there's a lot of people who I think have gone so far to overestimate the value and the importance of these influencer types and stuff like that. Because I really wonder how many of Speed's people are like, oh, look, Infantino showed up with Speed holding a ball. I know Speed's into football. I've seen him at football events before. It's not like I'm going to start watching the World Cup because he shows up with the ball. It's the way he does things. And I have a feeling we're going to see more Speed at the Club World Cup. And I'm not against it. I'm not against it at all. Jules, this brings us to an end.
Yeah.
But we got to come back on Thursday. You're already going to be on site in Munich. I will be joined by Stuart Robson, and we will do our traditional pre-Champions League final tactical preview, and maybe also reflect on the Conference League final, which everybody's waiting for with bated breath. Until then, love the game, love your neighbor, love yourself.